Another tough loss for Seattle. Is this a team we can truly believe in when it comes to the postseason?
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. That's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners that'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
Hello all, welcome to another episode of Tempestade Talk, part of Black Rosie Media. We are keeping a local eye on the Seattle Storm. Erica L. Ayala here with Roberta F. Rodriguez, and we are your hosts week in and week out to talk about the Seattle Storm. And Roberta, we've been talking about this a little bit. An up and down season. And the most recent loss, though, definitely a downer. 20-point loss to the Indiana Fever without Sophie Cunningham, without Sydney Colson, without Aari McDonald, and of course, without Caitlin Clark. And this team now finds themselves in that eighth and final playoff spot where just a few weeks ago they were what looked like a viable maybe 4-5-6 seed. What have you seen from this team on the backside of the All-Star break that has led to some of the inconsistencies?
Yeah, and you said the name of the game there, consistency or inconsistency. Noel Green has, I'm hearing myself in the background. So Noel Green has mentioned over and over again that the key for winning for the team is consistency, and we're not seeing that. The most consistent player that we're seeing is Nakagumake, and you can't have Nakagumake carry the team every night. Another player that has been consistent when she started playing, because it took a while for her to start playing and getting minutes, is Dominic Malonga. She has also been showing up for the team. She brings that youth. She's fearless, and she is just a dominant thing. So there has not been consistency. The team has not been consistent. They seem like they just run out of gas in those third quarters. You know, I was rewatching that game with the Indiana Fever, and once again, the Fever took off in the third quarter, and the Storm was never able to catch up to them. You saw, actually, to start the game, if you watch, I think the first 4 minutes, the Storm scored 5 points in that start, and all of those were by Nakagumake. In the meantime, the Fever was scoring and their team was going. So there hasn't been, the help has been inconsistent, and players are, like, you never know what you're going to get each night, who is going to show up. So you get glimpses of individual brightness, you get some pretty good individual performances, but as a team, it seems like they can't find each other and that they just can't match energy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's really unfortunate because, I mean, we've been playing that promo on Tempestade Talk since we started, and there was a lot of promise and a lot of things that made sense as far as the veteran leadership, including the coaching. But we've been critical of the coaching. We've been critical of the GMs because it's either this team isn't built properly, it's either this team isn't coached properly, or it could be that this team isn't competing to their highest level. I think honestly, at any given time, it's a combination of one or more, if not all three of those things. And that's the frustrating part, is that there just seems to be a lot of talent overall. But I feel like we talked about this before. Is the talent in the right spot? You mentioned Dominique. You mentioned Dominique Malonga. I mean, I'm going to be on CBS Sports tomorrow on We Need to Talk Now, and people want to talk about sixth player of the year. Dominique Malonga, with what she's doing now, could be a case for sixth player, or sixth player of the year. However, people questioning if she had enough minutes off the bench early in the season. Now, you don't start someone just to put them in a position to win individual awards. My point, though, is if Dominique Malunga is putting up numbers and is putting up performances where people are like, well, if she had had more minutes early on, she could do X, Y, and Z, then it kind of opens this coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? You know, I have been on the 100% on the train. If you have the number 2 pick, you have to play the number 2 pick. And, you know, this insistence that she needs to be coddled. I in a year where Seattle isn't really, again, having any consistency, I just don't know how, not even just in hindsight, but again, for me at the beginning of the season, I don't know how you justify not playing a number 2 pick when the whole premise of this organization, we're being told, Horata, is that it's a win now. This isn't a rebuild. It's not any kind of hybrid rebuild. So then what is the fear? You know, so I think that doesn't excuse, and it shouldn't, the performances that, or the lack thereof, that we're getting from the players, because that is a thing as well. Unfortunately, in professional sports, to a degree, all of that, what the players are doing, it's not going to save a coach or a general manager, even if it is true, because heavy is the head, pay the cost to be the boss. All of those sayings are there for a reason. The expectation is that as a general manager, you're going to build a team that can win, especially through when you have a top 2 draft pick. And the expectation as a coach is, if you have a top 2 draft pick, several former first round draft picks, including a first overall in Nneka Ogwumike, you know, that you are going to be successful. And that just hasn't happened.
No, I agree. And I think I was reflecting on it, and I go back to when the Storm started their off seasons, their free agency signings. Some people try to put the super team label. Some people try to be like, oh, this is a championship, this is a contender team. I understand. I think that they have the pieces. I think that they they have really good players who have made a name in the league. But I think there's also a difference with players in their peak. I'm not. Nneka and Skylar are outstanding players, but they're not in the peak. They continue. It's crazy though, because it does seem like Nneka is in her peak with what she's been
Oh,
doing.
you mean like her prime?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Prime. Her prime. I just received a note from production that my audio is echoing, so I apologize for that. One of my friends is watching and told me that my audio is echoing, so I
Oh.
apologize for that. Um, I'm sorry, everyone. Another person saying something. So I think that needed. They needed. There was more an issue for this team. I in the offseason why if the Storm was going to be top 3, I said no, and people were surprised. So I think that what is happening is kind of expected. I I always believed that there were like some unrealistic expectations when you think of everything that the team went through off the court, when all changes and the the feedback, the what happened post Brianna Stewart. I think that this is, and I'm not sugarcoating or anything. I just think that realistically, the Storm has had a very bumpy ride, and it is reflecting on the court. I'm gonna go get my other microphone.
Okay. So thank you, Sarah, and others who have responded either in the chat or otherwise. Hopefully we can get the audio issues resolved. But and this is the tough part of what we're talking about here, because yes, there have been some really tough losses for this squad, but by them losing by 20 points to Indiana in their most recent loss, it doesn't give us a chance to talk about them grinding out a win, or at least not immediately. We are going to talk about this, but we have to start with the loss comparative to their win against Washington. That was huge. They did have a lopsided win against Dallas, and they had a win against Chicago as well. So they were starting to pull things together, but it just seemed to me like the louder part of the conversation since our last episode when Huerta was in Vancouver is that all of those games that I just talked about, and then you lose by 20 to an Indiana Fever squad. And so Huerta, I was just talking about how, because of the inconsistencies, are we missing the opportunity to also talk about some of the upside? And I think it's just the nature of where we're at. We're seeing this team, given performances that happen that are outside of their control, but the losses and the losses to the opponents that they're losing to, they seem heightened. I mean, Indiana is 6 in the standings, and now Seattle is 8. So you get whomped by 20 points. Yeah, you beat Dallas. Okay, you beat Washington, but those teams are already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Can you hear me better? Or is it still echoing?
It's a little better for me. I guess we'll have to see. Because I wasn't hearing the echo one way or another. Let's just keep going, and people in the chat will let us know.
I do think that we are missing some of the upside of what's happening. I also agree with you that victories against Washington and Chicago, I mean, all the respect, you have to beat Chicago. I always go back to what the Studbud said. Y'all win beat Chicago. That was really good. So, when you look at it, they've had the wins against Minnesota, they had a win against New York, and then they lose by 20 to the Fever, and then they struggle against Washington. That's the inconsistency that we're talking about, and that's what has been happening with the team the whole time. I believe that it's more than what's on the court. I think that the team has been wavering a lot these past years. I think that no one was, and I've said that time and time and again. I just feel like a broken record now because they did not prepare for this moment, and it's being reflected on players, on coaching. They are really the team is struggling to find the footing, and it seems like it's from the inside out. And it seems like it's hard to think that a team with Neko Gumake, Skylar Diggins, Gabby Williams, Azzy Magbegor would be struggling this bad, and now Brittany Sykes would be struggling this bad. It's almost unrealistic, right? From what we were expecting and from what we understand as those players individually, and from what we know about Seattle winning as a franchise. So something is off. I will say that part of it is because Noelle Quinn is very conservative as a coach. I believe that she takes a while to make changes. She observes a lot. And although there are so many positives about, being patient and waiting to start your 19-year-old, Skylar Diggins said it best. If you don't come fully ready to win, if you're not all in, then you're not going to win. So if the Storm is set to win now and build for the future, they need to look at what is working and just dive in and just go for it. Dominic Malonga is not starting. In the Vancouver game, pre-game, I asked Noelle Quinn directly, can we expect Dominic Malonga to start? And she said no. She said no because she's young, because she's still acclimating to the league. I think that Dominic Malonga should start. I think it's past time for Dominic Malonga to start. Her experience as a number 2 player is not smaller, is not less than that of Paige Beckers as the number 1 player at 22 years old. Because as a 19-year-old, Dominic Malonga has more experience as a pro than Paige Beckers, than the number 1 draft pick. And it's not about Paige Beckers. We're talking about the Storm not starting Dominic. So as much as I understand the hesitancy, the taking it slower, I believe that there is a passiveness in Noelle Quinn's coaching that in certain ways affects this team and their performance.
Yeah, and I think that is, it's frustrating because these are things that we've been clocking for a while. It's frustrating because, yes, you can talk about, well, the WNBA is a different pro league than overseas for a lot of different reasons. You have to adjust to that game. I understand that completely. But at Vancouver, we're already through All-Star. You've already seen how Dom can play off of Slim, how Dom can play off of Sky, or even seeing Ezzy and Dom, and right? Noelle Quinn was asked about that, seeing them have more minutes together. I clocked it really early. You need Dominique to push Ezzy and Ezzy to push Dom. That's the best case scenario I always felt early on for this Seattle team. And to your point about Noelle Quinn being passive, to me, that should have been a directive of the organization to get that going, because you don't have time in the WNBA to take your time, quote unquote, acclimating your number 2 overall pick. If you are going to work on a project of a player, pick Dom with another pick. Anything but 2. Anything but 2. I don't understand continually saying that she's young. Like, we get it. Okay, yeah, she's young. Emma Miesemann, Leonie Fibish, Maureen Johannes, all players that, to your point, have started pro careers, quote unquote, young, have started, you could go back to, this is a deep cut, Natalie Achanwa playing for Team Canada at 19, super young. Okay, but how are they supposed to learn? And now you're in a position where a player that you've seen impact from, you are now having to find minutes for them alongside all of these other pieces that you brought in to try and right and steady the ship. And yet, still not sure we have a shooting guard. Not seeing significant minutes from Dominique Malonga. And, this team doesn't have a consistent that being the key word, a consistent offensive punch. That's why I go back to, sure, we can talk about coaching. Absolutely, we should talk about, quite honestly, just the performance sometimes of the players. But if you have a coach that is saying, we need more time with this, and listen, again, for maybe anything under in the WNBA, realistically, maybe you get away with that with the 3 pick, the 4 pick, but definitely number 5 overall and down, you can be like, oh, we want to give them time. But another thing, and we've talked about this too, is it that you need to give Dom more time, or that you're prioritizing other people who maybe can do similar things as Dominique Malonga can do on the court? And if that's the case, then again, why did you pick Dom at 2? And yes, I know what you're going to say, Olivia Miles, baka baka ba. Well, baby, you can't, once you knew, it's not like they found out the day before the draft that Olivia Miles wasn't going to be available. So you had time to fix that if that was the issue. So I'm just trying to make it make sense here, because right now it really doesn't. There's a lot of things going on here, and we've been talking about it in the Slack channel. For those who aren't a part of the Slack community, you should definitely join. But it's is this a GM front office issue? Is this a coaching staff issue? Are the players not right? Again, all of the above. However, what's the first domino to fall? And I think right now, Noelle Quinn is probably the most vulnerable.
Yeah, she's definitely the most vulnerable as it is for head coaches. When you think of the person who is driving the boat, she's the person who is steering the ship. And it makes me wonder, should they have drafted Sonia Citron instead? Because they need someone who can play the 2. Maybe that could have solved some problems, because you see what she's doing in Washington, and she is already taking charge there. That's something that she's number 3, Kiki Riefan is number 4, and they are already getting very, very reasonable minutes in Washington. Like I said, I understood at the start why Dominic wasn't starting. Now, I think it's inexcusable. I think that she needs to start, because she brings a different gas for the team. She's able to both attack and defend. She slows down the other offense. She is just that kind of player that you need to use. You can't have a player like Dominique Malonga and not use her. I also saw there have been other things. For example, we saw Gabby Williams a little bit slowing down on the 3-pointers, but we do see Nneka Ogwumike shooting from the outside a little more. She's actually shooting at a very high clip. But there are other players who could or should be doing that. This way, she would be covering another area of the court, the paint, of course, to help the team. Because, like I was saying, just the start of that game against the Indiana Fever, 4 minutes without anyone but Nneka Ogwumike scoring against a handicapped team. That's not it. And a team that should be in the top 5 at minimum. The Storm has the pieces to be in the top 5, alas. So you see Gabby Williams also having ups and downs. Skylar Diggins, she has been having some amazing performances, but she has also been ebbing and flowing a little bit. They just took their feet off the pedal. It seems like they ran out of gas. They brought in Sykes to try to fill that gap in the number 2 and try to bring another scorer. Can we say it's working? I would say that we can't see that change being super effective for now. I think that in Vancouver, we had it was a good preview of what this team can do and also what they did in Washington. Uh, so I think that they have pieces, but I do think that they're not being put in the right places. It's not making sense. They can't find each other on the court. They had so many turnovers in the first half of the Indiana Fever game. They were struggling to just like find each other on the court. They were struggling to defend. The know your the whole know your personnel. It's something is not clicking in that team.
And this is what's tough because right now and also just want to clear something up. Washington, I coupled with the teams that are already mathematically eliminated, but they are not. Right now, that is Connecticut, Chicago, and Dallas, the bottom 3 teams in the league. Washington, though, is 3-7 in their last 10. But Los Angeles, who is 6-4 in their last 10, sits just below the Seattle Storm in the standings, more so because of the win percentage, because they have the same amount of losses. It's just that Seattle has more wins. Anyway, this is a team also, though, that was able to get a really good win. What felt like a good win. They were able to get a win in a tight game and win late in the game. So as we look ahead to the schedule, where in the next few days, the Seattle Storm are going to take on the Minnesota Lynx, Chicago again, and the LA Sparks. So not to mention they have the New York Liberty looking ahead to next week. Well, I guess the Sparks technically is also next week. But let's look at those games. You have the 2 teams that played in the finals last year. You talk about a top 5 team. Well, right now New York is sitting in 5. But for all intents and purposes, those are 2 clear playoff teams as of now, and teams that can be dangerous down the road, especially with the matchups and size-wise for the Seattle Storm team. You have a Chicago team that, hasn't really gotten it together, and they have proved that they can be dangerous, they can be lethal, and kind of snatch away wins. We've seen them do that against New York. But then the big one, honestly, is not that Minnesota game, because we've seen the Seattle Storm actually handed Minnesota, right, their first loss of the season. But for me, I'm circling that game on September 1st, because that's the team that's right behind you in the standings, Huerta, and hunting you down. Like I said, they have more wins. Seattle has more wins than LA, but can they keep it that way?
Yeah, and it's not only can they keep it that way, it's that Los Angeles has kind of like turned the page in the season after Cameron Brink came back. It seems like the moment that the Storm kind of died down a little bit, the Sparks started peaking. So they are coming with a pretty decent sequence, and the games that they have ahead, they are also, many of them are winnable. They're playing against Indiana, Washington, and then the Storm, of course, Atlanta, Dallas, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. I would say that they can, for sure, they should win at least 2 of these games. I would say Indiana, Dallas, and perhaps the Storm or Washington, because those are teams that have been up and down. It is a dangerous team for the Storm. Last time LA played here in Seattle, the Storm was winning, and then LA just took over the game and were able to beat the Storm at home. So it is about what are the adjustments that they're going to make. Are they going to let Cameron Brink do whatever she wants in the paint, block anyone she wants at the Storm, get everybody every rebound, which is, for me, it's crazy that the Storm is struggling with rebounds this year. It seems crazy that I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe that the Storm, I think they're last in rebounds in the league. It is unbelievable. And I feel like that says a lot.
It's
Rebounds. I was like, I knew that, just wanted to confirm that they are last in rebounds, and the Sparks is third last.
it's really inexcusable. I mean, rebounds to me, and New York has also not been great with a great rebounding team. New Rebounding to me is all about placement. It's about paying attention to detail, and it's about hustle. You put your body in the best position. I mean, it's really go back to fundamentals. If you're not a good rebounding team, the first question I'm asking is, are you boxing out? The answer cannot be yes. You cannot be a bad rebounding team if you are boxing out. And I just, for the life of me, like every level of basketball, I just don't understand. It's like in small ball with baseball, like nobody bunts anymore and then wonders why you can't win close games. Well, if you can't knock the crap out of the ball, then you're not going to win. Oh, unless you put the ball down and use your freaking legs and run. Use your body and rebound the ball. I don't feel, I have no sympathy or empathy for a team that's like, oh, I just don't know why we're not rebounding. You're not boxing out. You're not communicating. You're not paying attention to, if you are guarding the shooter and you cannot box out, you are literally the only person who has a front row seat to where the ball is going and who shot the ball. Get a body on them, period. So that, to me, I don't like, what was it Kurt Miller said? Where he's like, I'm gonna lose my job because y'all can't something. Well, if I was a coach and I lose my job because my team can't rebound, I'm flipping tables. I'm absolutely flipping tables, because there is nothing you can do as a coach to prepare your team to rebound other than to tell them, rebound the ball. Like, I can't do that for you. I'm gonna need you to do that. I think he said, because y'all can't make a layup. That's also something that as a coach you can't fix. But like, rebound the ball. That's like a pet peeve of mine. I don't understand it. It's annoying. But, I want to move on here because it's got to be a little bit of an abbreviated show. I will be on the CBS Sports tonight on HQ to recap the WNBA, so want to get some time over there. But Roberta, we talked a little bit about Vancouver. That was a much better game. Washington was a better game. We've started, Nneka Ogwumike continues to crush. She's putting up gaudy numbers. You talk about, what is quote unquote peak. Who even knows with players like Nneka and Stewie, because I feel like their bar is so high that they've set that when they have like a bad game, or a bad season, it's still what most people wish they could have for like a career. So, and we're seeing that from Nneka. So it's really unfortunate that, who knows how many years Nneka has left. I think she would comfortably say she has more years behind her than ahead of her. And, she came to Seattle for a reason. I think we're seeing that individually. She also recently talked about, that, physically coming in, that she wanted to be stronger, be leaner. She talked about that very openly, about, I don't want to say metamorphosizing, because I think there were subtle changes, but significant changes. And we're seeing that in her play, coming in stronger, coming in leaner. And obviously her mentality, she's more comfortable in Seattle. So we're seeing that. It's just so heartbreaking at times to also see that as a collective, you're squandering those moments from NECA. You're squandering great performances from Skylar Diggins. You're squandering a full season of Gabby Williams, who, got banged up. Noelle Quinn didn't say much after the collision other than, people, it sounded like were alluding to, was she cleared to come back? Should she have come back after? It was incidental contact, but very significant contact in the head area. These are all things that it's what gave you hope and promise in Seattle. But, let's talk about what are the good things that you're seeing from the team when they're playing their best. What does that look like? What needs to happen in a game? Again, they're going to have Minnesota this week. They're going to have LA coming up soon. And those are significant games in that, again, we know those are playoff teams. Or at least, well, LA has the potential to be if Seattle doesn't get it together. So they need to win that game. They have playoff aspirations, I should say, with LA. What is the best version of Seattle right now? And what will it take to beat teams like Minnesota and LA?
Yeah, I gotta say that NECA is one of those players that they don't have a ceiling. NECA, Asia, Diana Taurasi. Some people are like frowning that the Storm is making an MVP push for NECA. I don't think it's an overreach. I don't think that it doesn't make sense because NECA has been having such an incredible season, and I think it it does need to be taken into consideration the fact that she's in her 13th season, and I think she's 34 or 36 years. The numbers that she's putting, they are incredible, and she should be in the MVP conversation. I was thinking that a while ago, and it's pretty amazing that the Storm is making that push for her because she's been doing really good. I gotta echo what Skylar Diggins has said time and time again, that she is the most disrespected MVP in league history because she is a silent killer. NECA is that kind of player who is, and again, echoing what Noelle Quinn said, that she's the most presidential person that you have that she has ever seen. So she has such like a respectable and a calm demeanor that sometimes it flies under the radar. And because of her responsibilities as the WNBA president, she ended up becoming known as Madam President, the person who does all those things for the players. And again, she said last season, I want people to remember that I am a really good basketball player, and that's what she's showing. So that's one of the best things that we're seeing about the Storm this year, NECA Gumake. I would say that the team is at their best when they are aggressive. When the Seattle Storm plays aggressively, beginning to end, they are unstoppable. What we have seen these past games and the games they're losing is a team that has lost gas. It's a team that has hit the brake and just can't find their footing on the court. If they get Skylar Diggins, NECA Gumake, Brittany Sykes, Gabby Williams, and Ezzy, the starters, to be aggressive from the get-go and get the team going, do what they did with Minnesota, do what they did with New York, do what they did at the start of the season, because they were doing so well at the start. So they need to have a really strong first half push, because you know that they have that third quarter issue. So if you know they're going to have a drop in the third quarter, make sure that your first and second are flawless. They need to make sure that they start off right. Perhaps one way to get that start right is bringing a certain player, bringing a certain second round pick who, since the All-Star break, has been scoring 11.9 points per game, has been averaging 55.9 field goals made, is shooting threes at 37% and getting 7.3 rebounds per game. Do you have a guess, Erica, who this player is?
I will take Dominique Malunga for it should have happened on the immediate. That's exactly what I was thinking as you were talking. To eliminate the echo, we're not going to crosstalk on this episode. So it takes away some of our spice, but we'll do it for the audio. But that's exactly what I was going to say. As soon as you started talking about this, I was like, they have a potential solution. And the fact that they were so unwilling to try this earlier, it burns my grits, it grinds my gears, it makes me just like so frustrated, because we have seen, and maybe this goes back to what you were talking about a conservative coach, or maybe just some other things that we've talked about being too nice of a city, of a culture at times. Las Vegas had Jewel Lloyd coming off the bench. The New York Liberty, in a year that they won a championship, had Courtney Vandersloot come off the bench. This WNBA, and this is why I feel for Noelle Quinn, and I also fear for Noelle Quinn. We've seen a massive turnover in coaching from last year to this year. Now, arguably, there's at least 2 coaches, you can figure that out on your own, that didn't really hit the brief, and that maybe you're questioning if they had to get rid of the woman who occupied that role prior to. But I will leave that to the comments to decide. This is not just for example, Dallas Wings or Chicago Sky podcast. So we'll leave that to those experts to talk about that messiness. But my point is that and I'm going to do something I don't always like to do, but let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a moment and her impact on basketball. This is what I want to say about this, and I want to be very explicitly clear. Whether it's real or imagined, from a business perspective, what Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, what Asia Wilson continues to do, and people have underestimated and overlooked her for too long. Sylvia Fowles, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, all of those players changed how coaching in the WNBA was able to exist, because they are revolutionary players in what they're able to do. You know everything that they're going to do, and you still can't stop them. Caitlin Clark has the potential to be that on the basketball court, but my argument right now is that her stardom supersedes what she's doing on the basketball court and how it's handled outside of basketball spaces. And that, to me, led to a lot of changes with front offices and with head coaches in the last year. To be able to compete with how Clark, Reese, and other players, still Stewie, still Asia, still NECA, still Sky, are revolutionizing the game. I wish they'd revolutionize it to the point where people think rebounding and boxing out is sexy again. Was it ever sexy? I don't know. I almost made a political joke, but also not that kind of podcast for today. But Noelle Quinn was the last kind of carryover from the last coaching revolution that we had, where WNBA coaches or former WNBA players were given opportunities as coaches. At this juncture, I think that it's beyond worth considering. But is Noelle Quinn a head coach in the WNBA right now? Because we've seen, especially former players, that they step back from a head coaching role. You have Tanisha Wright. Katie Smith has done this. Katie Smith now, of course, is back with the NCAA. We see it with Lindsay Whalen. She was an NCAA head coach and now is an assistant coach with the Minnesota Lynx, who also took Eric Thibault. So he went from a head coach. I never particularly liked that, but that's a whole nother story. That he got the head coaching role. I thought he was a little too green still. I mean, even though obviously the Thibault name, very well known in coaching, and that doesn't mean, that everything translates always. I think Noelle Quinn is running out of real estate for a head coaching role with how the WNBA is turning. And I'm not saying it's the only thing, but it very well could be that the smoking gun is how she handles Dominique, or has already handled Dominique Malunga. I think that Dominique Malunga getting more significant minutes. You talked about Cameron Brink. Let me finish that thought. Dominique Malunga getting more significant minutes could be make or break for this Seattle Storm team in the regular season, but especially in the playoffs. And again, we saw Courtney Vandersloot go from a starting role to a bench role in the playoffs, and it got the New York Liberty not just back to the final, but it got them a championship in having Leonie Fibish in that role. If Noelle Quinn, whether it's Dominique Malunga or anyone else, cannot make those hard decisions, have real conversations with the players, you are going to have people that are overpaid, that have ridiculous amounts of experience, that because of your roster might need to be role players. And you have to have that conversation. Ezzy Magbelor, I clocked it early. I said, if she doesn't get it together early, then that needs to be a short leash. And Ezzy struggled early. And we said, oh, Ezzy's tired, Ezzy's this, Ezzy's that. Well, then give her a break and play your number 2 pick. Like, I think we're beyond this. I mean, we continue. I know that we've talked about this ad nauseum at this point on this podcast, but it seems like it's a make or break here. I don't know what Kent is referring to, but we're going to keep it moving here. Not an Indiana Fever podcast, all about the Seattle Storm here. So just as we close here, though, Hoeta, what is realistic for this Seattle Storm team? Do they make the playoffs? Is it a bust of a season if they make the playoffs and lose in the first round? Like, what is the upside? What is realistic, and what is considered success versus failure as we march towards the end of the season here?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think that the seat is burning for Noelle Quinn, and even if the Storm makes the playoffs, something has to change, because you can't have this team, you can't have those pieces, and just let it all fall down the way that it's falling. It's not a good look. It's not a good look on the franchise. It's not a good look on the players. Fans are not happy about, how the team's going. And at some point, patience runs out, right? The same way, one thing that you mentioned that really stood out for me is that there are players who revolutionized the league. And the fact is that there are some coaches who have revolutionized the league. Let's talk about Becky Hammon. Let's talk about Sherry Reeve. Sherry Reeve is like, let's talk about Sherry Reeve. Let's talk about Becky Hammon. And honestly, look at the Atlanta Dream guy. I mean, I am biting my words, because I did not believe he would succeed the first season, but he's doing great. And it has a lot to do with I feel like a lot of the coaching has to do with personality. And in the WNBA, we have talked time and time again, this is an aggressive league. This week I saw a ranking of how many tax coaches had gotten this season. Noelle Quinn got none. She got no technical fouls, even though her team is being destroyed by the refs. Even though you see Gabby Williams being tossed around, Noelle Quinn has not gotten a tech foul. So it's unfortunately the way that the league is going, the way the market is for black female coaches. I unfortunately think that it will be hard for her to take a head coach position in the league. I do see her taking an assistant coach position. Um, as for the upside for this team, Dominic Malonga, 100%. You know that Seattle has had an assisting coacher. They have always been big on assisting. Someone mentioned in the comment, I think they are Fever fans. They said that they would take Erica Wheeler back in a heartbeat. I'm sorry, but Erica Wheeler is a big upside of the Seattle Storm. What Erica Wheeler has being able to bring to this team is something that they have needed for a long time. She has brought scoring, she has brought playmaking, and she has brought the energy. The energy that she has brought has made a big difference on how this team is stood afloat in very hard situations. She is such a strong presence both on the court and in the locker room. I think that was one of the best moves that the Storm could have made to supplement Skylar Diggins, because from my point of view, Skylar Diggins and Erica Wheeler match energy on the way they play and on the way that they exist in the locker room. So for Skylar Diggins to have someone as Erica Wheeler as her bench, I think it empowered her. And I think that even if, when we see Skylar and Erica Wheeler playing together, there was a lineup that was happening a lot before Brittany Sykes. You had both point guards in the starting line as they were trying to make up for the lack of a shooting guard. It did work somehow. It wasn't perfect. It really wasn't, but it did work. Someone said a lot of drama going on in that organization if they miss the playoffs. I think that they're going to have to make some changes. And the way that Seattle as a city culture goes, Noelle Quinn has been there for a really long time. They really trust her. They really empower her. But I think there has to be a very serious conversation about just about how the team was handled through this dismantling post Sue and post Brianna Stewart process. At the time, Talisa Ria was the GM. We saw the Storm went a whole week and more without making moves in the free agency after losing Brianna Stewart. Something has to be, they need to understand that this is the kind of thing that that needs to be looked. It's a team that hasn't been properly set up for the moment that the league is now, and they need to take a look inside. I do think that a lot of it is organizational, and they need to be a little bolder, and it starts from the top down.
Well, we'll see. We'll see indeed what this team is going to do. We're going to have to leave it there. But Huerta, I definitely want to circle back to get your thoughts on Sue Bird and her statue. Who else should get a statue? I feel like not enough people are putting respect on Lauren Jackson's name. If we're just talking about Seattle specifically, literally, she had Lauren Jackson. She had Swin Cash there. And I'm just trying to understand how they aren't a part of the conversation. The next few WNBA statues need to be from only 3 organizations. Houston Comets, RIP. Minnesota Lynx, where do you even start? And the Seattle Storm. Why those 3 organizations? Because those are the only 3 organizations that have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 rings. Count them, 4 rings. And if we're not starting there, I don't even know. Then it's a popularity contest. But we're going to have to close there. If you're watching this, tune in to CBS Sports HQ in just a few minutes because I will be on there with a WNBA recap. But for Roberta Rodriguez, Erica L. Ayala, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on, the next episode. Peace out, everybody.